Hello and welcome back to Seggz and Bacon. Thank you for tuning in if this is your first time. This show is all about liberation and evolution with a mix of storytelling, as I have about 15 years on and off in the sex industry, as a full service companion, not just a OnlyFans model or a dancer. Um, Though I have dived into nude modeling and things like that, fetish work, OnlyFans as well. But this has become my path, and it was a path that was birthed out of a childhood filled with sexual trauma, um, emotional, mental, physical, psychological. Um, did I say mental? Abuse, verbal abuse, throughout my teens. That is all in the first episode. I did not speak too much on the sexual trauma. I um, am not sure how I uh, looked that part, but there is more to my childhood and teen story than what I already shared. So if it wasn't dark enough, well, it does get darker. And that brings me to today's episode, and I am really nervous. But I know I have to record this episode because it helped shape my path. And these lovers who I am about to speak about, um, they truly helped as catalyst to awaken me from a path that is filled with a lot of trauma, a lot of heavy energy, and a lot of illusions. And it's really easy to get lost in all of that. And I'll admit that I did end up lost after leaving my home at 16. And it took these lovers coming into my life to reawaken those tantric sacred energies within me and help me birth who I am today, even though they may not be in my life. They all truly helped shape me. I can't say that enough. So let's dive into the first lover experience, as I had plenty of sexual experiences and lovers in a 4 year, what I thought was a monogamous boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, um, where I turned out to be the other woman, which really closed my heart and was the last piece of true pain and heartbreak that I needed to propel me into the what people call the low life, the sex industry. And this man that helped me pull myself out of that hole, or even he inspired me to want to, because for so long I did not want to. I was so jaded and in so much pain towards every experience I had, despite having all of that wisdom within me from researching it before puberty. Like, despite having the entire toolbox with me, there had been so many things to close that up and bury what I truly knew to be innate wisdom that would, I mean, change my life forever. And so at this point, when this, we'll call him the musician, came into my life in the physical, he had already been a part of my journey while I was in a toxic relationship, but I had no attraction to someone near my age at that point, even though he was still like 2.5, 3 years older. He was still on my level, and I didn't want someone who was still creating a name for themselves. And that was a lot due in part to my experience with my boyfriend of 4 years, who ended up being very perpetrative and abusive as well. He was 9 years older than me, and I was 17. And there's a long story with that. I'll probably make an entire episode, but that experience obviously did not awaken me. But this musician, during that relationship, would message me on Facebook because we were connected through high school mutual friends, even though we did not go to high school together. I mean, I was expelled by spring of freshman year because of my parents and their hell-bent, adamant mission to destroy anything worth living for in my life. And so we went to the same high school, separate years, and he would message me on every holiday, every birthday, like Valentine's Day, Halloween, my birthday. His dad and I share the same birthday, actually, which is funny. And my mom and I share the same birthday, which is a whole different synchronistic thing in itself. Um, Over the 2 to 3 years, he had been reaching out and almost like a supportive force that he didn't realize he was being for me, since no one really knew about my abusive relationship that I was in. I didn't really tell anyone, and the person that I did tell, which was my mom, told me that I was going to lose an amazing man if I didn't change my ways. um, Thanks, Mom. Anyways, we finally met, this musician and I, about 4 to 5 months after I had left the abusive relationship and I was deep into escorting. But I wasn't in an empowered, I was not in an empowered, I can't fucking talk, position back whenever I left my relationship. I didn't have boundaries. I was heartbroken, passively suicidal, and I didn't love myself. I didn't know how to. I was only ever taught how to hate myself. Um, and so, and escorting seemed like the biggest thing that I could do that was against everyone's wishes. And I made enough money to fuel my habits, my vices, and I did not have a name for myself at all. Let's get that straight. And so this guy, this musician messages me. Um, asking if, or I may have messaged him. I can't remember. I don't have the initial messages, but we ended up free that night and available to meet one another. And I gave him the address to the hotel that I was staying at, and I didn't think anything of it. I did not give a fuck about whether or not he was smart enough to put two and two together on everything. I invited him there, and as soon as he came into the room, I was intoxicated as fuck. That's really what broke down the judgmental and superficial ego that I had around dating someone who didn't have um, a lot to offer financially. Like, he didn't have the six figures coming in like my ex, and money mattered more to me than connection. And whenever I met him, all of that shattered. And we both locked eyes, and this was before I had words to put to what happened, but now I do. And there was soul recognition, and his eyes mirrored something. They were so familiar, almost like they were my eyes. And spoiler alert, he's was not my twin flame, by the way. There is a twin flame journey in this, though. He was the catalyst that my soul needed to break away and to start searching for the answers that I had stopped caring about seeking for. And um, everything that came after the first experience with him, after eye gazing and just connecting um, and reuniting as lovers with uh, the energy was wild. um, Sobering. Usually, whenever I've had that much to drink, especially tequila, there is no memory. But I can tell you, nearly 10 years later, because that was no, it has been 10 years, nearly 11 years, because we did have our meeting in February of 2016. It's 2026. Um, yeah, 10 years. Why do I think that it's already the end of 2026? Wow. Wow. Anyways, um, our meeting led to what I thought was like potential. It turned out to be a dynamic where he was very emotionally unavailable. So was I. I was not honest. I was super verbally abusive as well towards him, towards his actions, no matter what kind of ghosting and anxiety, attachment disorder, or style, not disorder, style he has. It was never right for me to dehumanize him the way that I had over a span of what was on and off for, I would say, 9 years, because I saw him back in 2024, September 2024, and I could tell that we had reached our soul like completion and end of our soul contract together, despite me hoping and praying that this was going to work out and manifest into a long-term committed relationship. Instead, he gave me something so much better. He gave me the freedom. and the motivation and inspiration through my rage of being ghosted and abandoned over and over, um, to embrace my creative side because he was also a musician. He inspired the way that he devoted himself to his music, and by doing so, that meant not selling his soul for six figures right off the bat because he's intelligent enough to do so. But his path is his path, and his path truly inspired me to take the risk of moving from Orlando with nothing to California and having all of the experiences out there, um, which led me ultimately to Tantra by 2019. um, I'm skipping ahead a little. So what broke the first cycle of me being a companion was an abortion that I had in June of 2016. I truly thought that this man was the father, but after my own um, completed pregnancy in 2023, I learned that I was very naive and wrong for putting all of that energy on him because there were other potential paternal options there, but I mean, I terminated the pregnancy. I was not in a good space. I was numbing, using vices to numb everything I felt and was experiencing to get through the type of clients I was attracting um, at the time. And that abortion led to my subconscious looking to escape through psychedelics while I was in this very, what is it, unhealed and codependent nearly on the relationship working out that I dived into the usage of mushrooms and LSD, mostly LSD at this time, which um, at some point I started to have uh, very, very lucid and divine experiences through escaping through acid, which taught me that if you want to escape and you use certain psychedelics or any psychedelics really, these healing modalities that alter your mind space, they will give you um, the craziest escape of your life. And you, at least I, not everyone chooses the same path. That's the divine uh, beauty of this reality is free will. But I learned that I didn't want to escape anymore. And that made me super depressed coming to that realization. Um, and there was a lot of heavy energy that caused such a heavy reaction to everything. But at that time, I did not know. why. There was also the experience, pardon, that after having an abortion in July 2016, I was pregnant in June 2016. Um, I ended up going to New York, um, and the timeline of meeting up with this musician was February, and another meeting in, I believe it was April, and then another meeting in June, and another meeting in August, and then another meeting in December. And after that, it took about, I think, 2 years for us to come back into the physical. Um, but we're still in 2016. So the events in 2016 that added to this awakening was the chloroform rapist that I mentioned in my second video of the top three life altering experiences as a model. Um, and I So whenever I went through the chloroform experience, on top of everything I was already experiencing with the musician, with my past trauma, sexual uh, trauma in my childhood, and throughout, actually it had expanded throughout my teens and 20s at that point, and then my parents taking away my stability within my brain chemicals, and how uh, my brain chemistry was completely off. So the decisions I made were also fueled by that. Um, this experience of being chloroformed, but not being able to confirm that and access that memory till June of 2020, it caused me to be very, 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 very depressed. Like my body, my soul, I could not shake it no matter what. And um, this started in October of 2016 because that's whenever the attacks happened. Um, and 20, the rest of 2016, I was just in an awful space. And so by the time I saw this musician again in December, um, we hooked up. He pulled the same shit that he usually did by ghosting whenever I truly needed someone to support, like to hold my hand almost, like, and just be solid through this trauma. And at least that's what I thought at the time. What I know now is that I am that bitch who gets to support myself. And that is so beautiful just to be able to have that strength and the ability to maneuver the trauma, and knowing that I am the one who ended up doing the work. And I can thank these lovers for being lighthouses or guideposts to shine a light on the path that is possible. Um, so back to our meeting in December 2016, after he started to not respond again, and I unleashed every verbally uh, diminishing statement I could about his life. It's a part of my Scorpio traits and qualities in the Aries that is in my chart that give me such volatile ability to hurt others. And it's not something I like about myself, but it is something that I have utilized in my relationships with men. and it's something that I do own now because it's something that I don't want to um, inflict on others, especially whenever the connection proved to be truly divine and beautiful. And this is my way of thanking them, despite those shadow qualities within me. And um, so we didn't talk January, and by February, I knew that what I had said that time finally was too much, and I was over medicating, self medicating at the time, and I basically overdosed in a hotel room in February, um, which I do need to back up and mention that all of this was divinely orchestrated because I couldn't fully understand the divine experiences I had during the LSD trips or the mushrooms, but there was an eclipse, full moon eclipse, the beginning of February or end of January that um and I can't remember how I was aligned with like the full moon and looking at all of that uh stuff again. I mean, I remember as a kid I loved astrology, but somehow oh, I remember it was a client in Manhattan in October that I had the crazy acid trip with and saw a lot of things, tapped into clairsentience in Manhattan. And that's not something you want to do without realizing that you're about to do it. Because all of the souls that came through and channeled through him without him knowing, this client, whew, forever changed. On top of the chloroform experience that happened the same like 2 or 3 weeks that I was up there, I was catapulted into a dark night of the soul where I thankfully did use the full moon and the eclipse energy. I think it was Leo Aquarius because we just had the same one, or the vice versa signs, the opposing, or we just had an eclipse in the same signs. I can't remember how that is phrased. I'm not an astrologist. I just am a hobbyist in the realm of that. And all I know is that it fucking worked. I wrote down, and I remember what I wrote down during this full moon eclipse that, or it was like a solar eclipse, whatever. It was an eclipse on the fucking day of the full moon. And it was like, I read an article that it was like 100 times more potent than any other time to write a manifestation list. And some people are like, you don't do anything on eclipses, but if you want to change timelines, and you're deep in the shadows, I would definitely not listen to any of them. Even though I do love resting on eclipses now. Um, so I remember being so depressed and the ego death that came with everything that I realized what fueled my current path, and it was the desire to, or not desire, it was the fact that it was easy money, and I wanted to have nice things, go shopping, have money for trips to Miami, to fly around the globe. And I didn't see another way to have any of that given my upbringing and my roots and the derailments in my life. And so the path of sex work was the way to achieve all of that without working for minimum wage. And that was the exact statement that I used was I just wish to be okay with working a minimum wage job again so I could be happy and not be paid to be sexually assaulted because that was the alignment I was in at that time. And at that time, I didn't realize there was an empowering path to this entire industry. The people who had helped me into the industry was the person was a friend that I was friends with in middle school through high school. And I showed her the ropes on sugar daddy sites and chose to go back to a relationship, a toxic relationship, whenever I was 18 and gave her a client. And from that, she ended up transforming it into, I mean, she was a partier in the nightlife and stuff. So she went downtown, and that's where a pimp found her. And I mean, pimps have a way of manipulating you and controlling you. It's not like they keep you in a box or a, a fucking cage. They work on hooking you in and making you feel emotionally trapped, like you're there because some of them were in love with this man and stuff. And this is just the backstory of her experience. And by the time we met 3 years later, I left my ex, and her pimp had gone to prison. And it was so much fun in the beginning. And then it turned into not being fun at all because she ended up dating a scammer. And on our trip to Miami, I ended up being drugged, and so was her boyfriend, but they left me hanging over a guardrail in front of Fat Tuesdays off of Ocean Avenue. This was back in March of 2016, a month after meeting the musician, and also why I think I trauma bonded to him in such a way. And he, not he, we were given drinks at one of these pool parties, and then we were kicked out. And so the people who hurt me weren't the people who gave me the drink. It was three guys who put me in an Uber, and we ended up going to this apartment. I was blacked out, by the way. I remember being put into the car, but that's all I remember. And I woke up to one of the guys, only one of them was still there, tapping his dick on my ass after I guess he just pulled out or finished. And I was waking up and he was rinsing off in the bathroom. And yeah, probably the worst experience because of how awful I smelled. And it took over a month for my throat and esophagus to feel the same, whatever they did. Um, to me, my entire esophagus felt raw and completely, um, like, how do I say it? Raw and in pain and tender and sore. I couldn't even swallow without uh having this heartburn feeling all throughout my throat. And his name is Japan, by the way. Jappan. If he still goes by that name, I'm not sure. He probably changed it because, I mean, to this day, I have not changed my phone number. And the only way I got out of that alive was fawning. And he was in the Uber that got us back to the parking lot where my friends were just about to pull out. One car had already pulled out to head to the hotel, which we weren't supposed to be there another night. We were supposed to go back that day. And they all laughed. And he got my number and my friend's number. And to this day, he still texts me on the anniversary, um, month, timeline, spring break time, because I guess I'm the best experience that they've ever had. That that's how disgusting. Um, this man and his two other friends and the Uber, honestly, like what the fuck? Like these random ass men pick me up as my friends, because I asked them uh, what happened, and they're like, "We last thing we know, you're hanging over a guardrail," and they laughed at me until I left that um, dynamic in February of 2017 because they blamed the alcohol, they blamed the fact that I stood up to them, said that I was crazy, and one of the girls that I was touring with in February 2017 who had been in the industry for, I think, 15 years at that time. So I don't know if she's still in the industry or not, but she told me so much. And this was Backpage days, like before the industry has changed and evolved into what it is now. And this woman, horrible, horrible, wretched human being. And all of them really were. Even that friend, the middle school friend, I'll never speak to her again after the overdose experience. And that's all that led up to me finally being so passively suicidal that I took too many um, stimulants within a 36-hour period. And the near death experience was so lucid. And that's not what this is about. That I can do an entire episode about that actually. But this is the journey of my lovers, and the musician helped guide me in a manner that my soul started to yearn for this love. And I had never felt this love before. And even though it wasn't love, it was a preview. It was just a taste of what was out there. And the tantric healing world and soul connections. And with a near death experience combined, something about the near death experience was just like the acid experience and the psychedelic experience, and the energies I met and the ones that guided me back to my body during a true, not ego death, an actual, like, choose to stay here, fight in your, to stay in your, to get back into your body, um, or die and restart the karmic loop. And with choosing to stay in my body, I came back enlightened and awake and searching for all of the answers, searching for everything from the mirror effect and um, which eventually led into like the types of twin flame connections. And though the musician was not my twin flame, he was the sole motivator, the flame that gave me a spark and the push that propelled me into movement where I was stagnant and I was dying and I was fragmented to a point of being a disgusting human being. Hindsight, um, the ego I had prior was so miserable. And he motivated me after not seeing one another or speaking um, since December 2016. And we finally spoke December 2017, but we did not meet in the physical until February 2018, in which, when we finally met, I had done so much energy clearing and meditation and soul work and self like love, alignment, subliminals, hypnotherapy. I was on YouTube every day, um, diving into myself, and I loved it. It was the drug that I needed in my life. It replaced all vices, and the Kundalini energy I was tapping into, the orgasms without touching myself, um, the ability to tap into what I felt like calling him in. And whenever I did call him in, we met, and of course we hooked up. And before that, though, we were laying side by side together, facing one another. And I had already started my modeling career, had already gone through like the Dateline Killer meeting, and already had my first experience out in LA. And I was in the process of working on manifesting my van life, travel trailer life that I wanted to um, experience, and I eventually did. I really wanted him to be a part of it though, because he also thought that it was super cool. And with that meeting, after that meeting, I bought a gutted out um, 1985 Sunraider, and it was very ambitious. I ended up having to sell it because I didn't have the tools or the support to help renovate it. Um, but it was a blessing in disguise. But going back to the reconnection period that we experienced, February in 2018, which truly propelled me to cut all ties to Florida, um, and move to California with absolutely nothing to my name and a car rental and with and a friend's name, and only $250 to get me from Florida all the way to Phoenix, which was my first paid gig. Um, that meeting was, I think, it was the first time um, I had ever had the ability to exchange energy orgasms with someone. And with him, I was following my intuition with my hands and just sensually touching him, like from his waistline up to his like heart and shoulders. And it just started out with making out and hugging each other. And through our embrace, we were able to his came first, and he had to like nearly check himself to make sure that he didn't ejaculate. And then after that, mine came, and we started to make love. And by the end of that, I was fully like convinced that it was supposed to, like, he was the one, because not only did that happen while he was inside of me, Um, Sorry for TMI. Right in the act. Whatever. No reason to censor now. I could see these lights, the frequency of lights and the realities, and different dimensional beings, like guides, almost like, not almost like, there were angels, archangels, and spirit guides around, as he was inside of me, and it was the most divine experience. And the only thing we had in our system was a few hits of weed. Like, it was insane, um, to have such a psychedelic experience during sex, without intentionally not even trying and not even taking drugs. And so that experience, once I got out to LA, um, by December 2018, I was subleasing from a model, now podcaster, which I did mention in my misogyny video about her being a pick me. And there's a whole thing with her and how, like, why I feel the way I do about her. Um, she's the one who found me through Instagram because I was doing so well on my own and I was staying in hostels and working the social media and stories and gaining traction and popularity and followers. And this guy who followed her followed me, and I had actually like gone out with this guy too. And she followed me immediately after, even though they had never actually met. It was just so weird. Um, and so she reached out to me saying that, hey, I notice you're in the area. I am traveling international for these months, basically 3 months worth of her time being gone on and off. And it was only $1,500 for the month to be there, and she prorated it as well. And so I took her up on the offer, and whenever I was in that apartment, I was more grounded in a manner that I started to look into the spiritual workshops in the area and where I could go for yoga and sound bowl healings, and all of that led up to finally discovering this workshop that was uh, named the Psychedelics of Sex, Tantric Lovemaking. Um, and that was all I needed to read because I was like, holy shit, I need to understand what the fuck this experience was. And the model that I was subleasing from, she was in that night. And so we both went there together. And I never told her this, but I mean, here I am now. Didn't really need her validation, don't need it now. This is just part of the journey which led me to where I am now, sharing these profound, soul reckoning, soul changing, shaping experiences. Um, Soul awakening is the good word for it, or a good, better word. But I, in the 2 hours of that workshop, I realized how much I already knew, and that this was just rediscovering a part of me that was shamed and buried and derailed for nearly, I mean, at this point, I was 24. I would say about 14, 15 years of derailment and shame and burying this beautiful wisdom and realizing there was nothing to be ashamed of. I wasn't doing anything wrong and I wasn't practicing it with people. I wasn't being sexually crazy despite my trauma. Um, all of the sexual trauma that my parents didn't acknowledge or realize was happening until, I mean, I was like 26, 27, whenever my sisters remembered the incidents in our childhood. And they were like, she's not lying. And we just thought it was a really, really bad dream. And basically letting my mom know that at some point I would stay to be the one that was victimized while my sisters were able to go outside and be away from it. Basically distracted my mom's half sister and stuff, who was the one who was hurting me and my sisters at one point, but not as long as she was hurting me, which was like 11 years worth. And the worst part is we were 3 years apart. So, any parents out there, be fucking careful. Don't leave your kids with other children unaccompanied because children can do some of the most fucked up things to one another, truly. And that's not to sexualize or like demonize children, but it is just the truth from experience and from others' experiences. The worst thing you can do is leave children unsupervised in a setting where anything could happen. Just like if you were to leave that child with an adult, it still can fucking happen because you never know what is going on or what that child has seen or been through themselves. Um, Even if you think you don't know. Let's put it that way. So, after rediscovering this path, we both, the uh, model and I, realized that we needed to be on these tantric paths, and hers felt more like competition because I also had a lot of interest, and her questions are about like her questions to me were so obviously um egotistic and wounded, like in a lack consciousness type of way, like as if like she had to do and get everything out first so that like it wasn't a competition. And at some point, well, at some point she did ask me over 5 times in a row within like 3 fucking minutes in the same like holding the mic, uh asking me questions about myself. She's asked the same fucking question. So, what are you doing in LA? What brings you to LA? As if, like, bitch, you did not discover me already in LA and I'm helping you out in a situation. She offered for me to have the space in like March or April of that year, and I was like, never again. And slowly, I mean, on top of that, she was so blind to everything going on and needy of male validation and attention that she ended up befriending online. I don't know if they ever met in person. Uh, the chloroform rapist photographer, because that was the same timeline that our second meeting and the second attack happened. And she's still to this day is doesn't know. And you guys can look up his information. It's HAGOP, Hagop photography, Hagop photo. Um, he has worked with a lot of A-list models and brands and companies. And so, of course, she wanted that attention. She had to have it. When in reality, I was also unraveling the fact that of who he was and everything like that. And her personality, I mean, there was no really telling her. There was no point in telling her what had happened. I didn't feel comfortable enough to warn her because that would mean being vulnerable or speaking to her. And so hopefully she never interacted with him. She supposedly had her own journey in relationships where the universe sent her off with someone else and not him, thankfully. But yeah, that was just like the energy she gave off with everything, and it was stunting. Truly, because it felt like I wasn't allowed to like have my voice or my creative expression without her feeling like it was about her. And this is a person who invited me to sublease, not me finding them and wanting to be in their life. She was financially benefiting off of this dynamic, and she wanted to make it seem as if like me diving into my own destiny was taking from her and her potential. And well, the Reddit forum she has about herself being a narcissist, and the fact that she makes content supporting male loneliness and epidemics just really solidifies what I told her before whenever I ended any connection with her. And I told her that you're going to hurt more people than you'll help them. And of course, she used that as fuel, as being told that she wasn't capable, which no, it's not that. It's just that you're coming from a place that is full of toxic positivity and spirituality, where you're not even able to look at your own shadows. How the fuck are you going to be able to look at someone else's without projecting your ego onto all of it? Like, you can't truly help someone whenever you're looking through a lens of your own issues. Like, it's impossible and disgustingly impossible. That's not the point though. Um, well, maybe it is because she did act as such a force that it took me longer to dive into this path and wanting to embrace it because I would not have wanted to be like her. And it just wasn't worth it. Like, if there is such a, I guess, outline, a trendy outline for each of these tantric or spiritual podcasts to touch on certain topics, then I didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't want to be a trend. I wanted to truly help. I wanted authenticity. I wanted um, to share what my soul had just dived into, which can't be found in a generic setting with generic energy. Um, you can't connect to your soul until you've done the ego work. And anyways, um, I eventually, this was 2020, I eventually went to a Tantra school and got my certification down at Durga's Tiger School in Ecuador. Um, that was February of 2022, which is also the same school that she went to. Um, but I didn't realize that until I looked on their website, their Instagram, and there was like a picture of her there. And I was led to this school by being gifted a book called Kali Ma Tantra, or Tantric Kali. Yeah, it was Tantric Kali. And this writer had attended Durga Tiger School, and it was about the red path. And all of these Tantra schools were so hard to find a red path that wasn't like a cult or forced you to do sexual things or sexual acts on others or even the guru or sleep with the fucking gurus. And so once I went into Tantra school, um, I was also in the escorting industry again because I was in need of a different type of liberation. I had practiced the conscious celibacy and abstinence, and I was starting to have crazy dreams about doing this type of work again. And I had bought a phone. This was before leaving California and moving to Florida. Um, I had already started with setting up profiles. I just hadn't started using them. And by October of 2021, I started in this industry again, which led me to have some really great experiences because now I was showing up as the tantric companion, the one who was diving deeper than just the superficial um, connection that was usually booked and paid for. Um, and by, what was it, September 2022, Jeff had finally faked his death fully. That's episode 2, by the way. The person that I lived with in California faked his death um, because I did live with someone outside of subleasing in LA. And that was a tech millionaire who sold his patents to Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and helped create Microsoft and Apple, and even turned down both of the Steves whenever they were just a startup company. And he was like, I'm not leaving my position for a company uh, named after a fruit. And well, fast forward, we are all here. And I am recording on a MacBook as we speak. So um, that was a fun 6 degrees of separation that I was able to manifest and play out in my life too. That's a different story for a different day. But this man faking his death put me in a state of grief where I felt this vulnerability again to seek out the masculine. And at this point, I had been through a few, um, well, one in particular connection uh, during the summertime where we took MDMA together, and it was an amazing experience to connect with someone in that way. It was the closest experience to the psychedelic experience that I had with a musician. But this finance guy, it was just like surface level. I was a catalyst for him and stuff like that with his ending of his relationship and his life in that way. Um, because he did end up coming clean about all of the escorts he was hiring, because he was on a bender that summer. And so that energy, this Manhattan energy, I don't really want to touch too much up on it because it was just like an MDMA experience that I was chasing. It was whatever I reconnected with on MDMA. I told myself I wanted that. And that's like just the little spark like uh that one needs to reignite their engine, like an alternator. um and so I was a bit upset about, like, I wouldn't say upset necessarily. There was something connected to that Manhattan energy that I Oh, and I almost moved to Israel in October and November. That was also part of like the crazy trying to escape the path that I created for myself because Jeff was dead and um all of that. And well, I guess all of those events have propelled me to where I am now on embracing a different career path because I gave myself 5 years once I re-entered this back in October 2021. And I meant it. I told myself that is your timeline and that is it. That is all you're going to put back into this. And with that being said, going back to this energy that I could sense coming into my life, um, that I felt on the MDMA experience with this guy in Manhattan, that was similar to the musician, which I had already given up on that working out. I had seen the pattern fully, and I that's another thing. I see the pattern within relationships really, really quickly where it ends the relationship. Um, and it's also why I would say they weren't relationships. And I've been single, just dating. And I mean, becoming a pattern master, I guess, a master of patterns. Um, and so between Jeff dying, the Israel trying to escape there, that not working out because I mean, that's a whole nother story too. The Manhattan guy drug-induced experiences being the spark that I needed, um, it left a lingering energy that I felt whenever the musician came into my life, in which I hadn't felt in a really long time. And I feel it occasionally, like realigning with this masculine that I met on the divine experiences on LSD back in 2016 and during my near death experience, which is honestly the energy that pulled me back here because there was nothing else worth living for if it wasn't for that divine connection being the gift from the universe once I came back and did my soul work. Um, it was the promise, and that's another uh, thing that I guess leads into this second connection, which, um, though it is a promise, it doesn't mean that things are forever. Everyone has free will, and no matter how destined and aligned and mathematically aligned through astrology and synastry, um, everyone has free will, and that free will overrides anything that the divine has planned for you because you can choose to sell your soul, you can choose to end things, and you can choose never to show up, and you can choose to remain in an ego fueled cycle because you're afraid of transforming and experiencing the intensity that comes with a destined twin flame connection. I don't like using the word twin flames, but this is my twin flame uh story. This second guy is at least. So January 2023. Um I believe I was pre-booked in December, or actually it was like November that I was reached out to by the, I guess, group organizer of this male trip. gentleman's trip to the Rolex races in Daytona. And I guess this is a yearly thing that these guys were going and doing. And this was the second year for one of their friends because there were about like 10 of them, I feel like, maybe 8 to 10 of these guys on this vacation and party bus, which we were only hired to do the party bus. And I could feel this energy coming in that was going to change my life. I could feel the masculine and the everything within me was shifting, and I felt almost like delusional and in a state of psychosis because I was like, is this Manhattan guy gonna be on this trip? Like somehow with all of these men from DC. And um no, that was just like the Molly induced like trigger feeling that I had felt because we were on Molly. Um, that was almost like a pulse in the experience of seeking my divine counterpart in this timeline. And so me and a friend show up to the airport because that's where we meet at a bar there. And we all get our drinks and we head to the party bus and we leave the airport and we end up breaking down. And the whole time they were talking about someone missing their flight or being late and all this. And there was no like really like second like thinking about like or caring. I was like, okay, you guys are really like, so he's missing out. There wasn't really anything to comment on. It was just something I recall them saying. And he was going to meet them in Daytona, basically, because he was going to get in after the party bus left the airport. And the amount of time it took to get another party bus to us at the airport um, was the same amount of time it took for him to land. And so by the time we were all in this other bus, we pulled up, and the group organizer was like, this guy has had such a long, awful day with flights, almost didn't make it. You girls make sure, like, he feels like he's the center of attention. Give him all of your attention. And so, of course, we did. And um, it was insane. Like, as soon as like I saw him, I knew he was like really hot. Like I was um me and my friend did our little thing, gave him a lot of attention, got off the bus and made a huge ordeal. And we just made him feel like wanted, and that was like the thing. We wanted everyone around like waiting for their Ubers or rides to be like, what the fuck? Or this man, because he gorgeous. Mm, scrumptious. I did not know that this was the man that we almost left behind, and we'll call him the lawyer. And well, we could just call him my twin flame too. Don't really have to call him the lawyer. Uh, and I'll get to all of that confirmation here in a bit. But as soon as we get on the bus, he gets seated, and I start giving him a lap dance, and I straddle him, and the energy, like it's like coming home, and it was just like so sexually intense. And there was no um, breaking the connection. Like I tried to like give everyone else attention on the bus, but as soon as he was there, and my friend was giving him attention too, I was not trying to um, enmesh myself with what energy I just felt. And as the night progressed, he was, well, the one and only person that I basically was paid to sleep with, other than doing a double blow job later in the night just to get a few extra $100. I think it was like 300 because I was like literally not even the one who like did much. I came in drunk as fuck and I just broke away from the connection at that point because we left like okay, so the party bus ended, we stayed longer. I didn't want to leave and I asked my friend, "Hey, do you want to go to the strip club with these guys?" And that's where things started to escalate. And meanwhile, we're probably about 3 hours into all of this. Then we head to, well, 4 hours. Then we head over to the strip club and we're having a great time. I'm getting all of these dancers to come over and dance for these men because no one's visiting the VIP section for whatever reason. And um, the way I moved and held myself was really attractive to him. And it's actually a theme in our dynamic with multiple things of and other dynamics of just being confident. And it wasn't my first rodeo either. Uh, and I don't think he'd ever seen or been with someone who was like me. And we're hitting the fifth hour of being in one another's company. We're sitting on the booth, uh, and a dancer asked how long we've been together, and I was like 5 hours, and we start laughing, haha. And then my friend, she finally asked the right question. She's like, "So, are you married or do you have any kids?" And the truth came out. He, turns out, had a wife and a daughter, and they were also working on a second through IVF that I found out later on. Um, and because I came back the second night and he didn't have me come back the third night because he needed to like make sure his sample or load was fertile enough, and that IVF journey didn't work out, and I ended up um, finding out I was pregnant February 20th. This was like January 28th and 29th or whatnot in 2023 that we met. And through this time, I, before finding out about the pregnancy, we were still flirting and planning like to see each other and all of these things, building, well, it was the making of an affair. And um, as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I truly did believe that he was the father because while we were making love, I saw children running around him, and it felt insane to see like all of these children just running as he's like on top of me, and plus the sex was like insane. Never ever ever had that crazy of an experience. I mean, I have recently back in January, and that is another story I'll get to. here soon. Um, but this connection, um, he knew who I was before I was willing to see it as that. I was so in denial about, like, well, not in denial. I was fed up with a lot of the way uh things unfolded. Um he Until I realized I was pregnant, I mean, he admitted later that he bought his now ex-wife a car. Oh, and she's remarried. So if you guys hate me, don't. I was a catalyst for her finding her true love as well. So, and this man, um, going back to, sorry, there are people walking down my hall. Okay, so finding out I was pregnant, um, he was happy, also terrified. Um, but that's when things like the reality started to hit as well. Um, that this affair wasn't going to like be successful. And I visited him in Virginia, where he lives, uh, actually Richmond, Virginia, because I'll be returning there at the end of the year for some soul reclamation work. And or throughout this year, calling in a lot of my soul that was fragmented from the experience with him, despite being my divine counterpart and my twin flame. Um, when I visited for 2 nights. All I needed was one night there, technically. And he, for whatever reason, I don't know why the hell, I was there for 2 nights. But the first night he was there, came through, but like the second day, he left by like 11 a.m. or noon. And it was just like really early because, like, I mean, I had just flown up there. I was a few weeks pregnant. I thought my baby was his. And this man, I knew that he needed an alibi, but the way it all unfolded, it just felt like, um, and this is his pattern, by the way. He was so wrapped up in the three-dimensional version of himself, and he had to keep up with appearances. So he left. It was a Saturday because I flew out on fucking Sunday. So he only gave me Friday fucking night. And that was like 4 p.m., like fucking booty call hours. And I was not going to have it. Um, once I realized what was going on. And Saturday after he left, it was like a feeling of abandonment and not truly being cared for and just disgusting. Um, and he was going to hang out with his now ex-wife's brother, who I found out is a police officer, and that he chose to hang out with, of all people, a police officer, brother, trying to keep up with all of those appearances. And he had the audacity to text me at like 9 or 9:30 that night saying that he really wanted to come over. And it's not like, at that point I realized that he could have planned to do that anyways. And what, just because you're intoxicated and whatnot, like it was a total disregard of me being up there. And I went back to Orlando feeling heartbroken and abandoned by this energy. And like I said, I did not call it in like a twin flame, even though he was definitely bringing that up, and he would bring up MJK and Megan Fox because they were just coming out with like their twin flame journey. And this is significant as I progress with the story because of their natal charts, MJK and Megan Fox. Um, and thank God I did not look at the lawyer's natal chart. Like, I ended up looking at it in 2024 because I wouldn't have chosen myself. I don't believe it wouldn't have been as easy to leave the dynamic if I had known this is my twin flame and this is my soul contract, and um, that this is my journey and my destined path. Like, this is the person who's going to help um, me birth my healing practice into the world. He's the structure and stability. He's my twin flame. He's the healing, the ultimate healing connection. And um, meeting him, he was not on his spiritual path, and I don't know if he's ever entered it, honestly. And that's why I also don't know if he'll ever choose this path and choose himself by choosing this path and union and the path of true least resistance and acceptance and unconditional love, which is something I have for myself. And I have the inner knowing of, despite it not being working out, um, I know that there is no other connection like that for me on this earth, in this reality. And I know I am the same for him, no matter how much he chooses his ego, and no matter how much he chooses status and money and power and appearances and reputation. Because him leaving either dynamics that because he's in a new dynamic as well, and I'm really happy for him that he manifested his huge family. But that's jumping forward too much. Let's go back to March, whenever I left Richmond and ended up back in Orlando. Um, Within like a week or two after that, he had this planned trip to Vegas, and he made it seem like a guy's trip. Turns out it was a trip with him, his wife, and some friends. And it turned into one of these like overcompensating guilt guilt trips, literally guilt trip. He spent so much fucking money on his ex-wife and this Vegas trip and buying her new car. Meanwhile, he treated me like shit because of like the dynamics of being a sex worker. And I mean, his wife has her own salary of her own, and everything like that. And just like that was his mentality. He chooses status and women who have status and reputation and money and power and inheritance. Um, sorry, I'm still good. Getting over a cold. All right, returning now. So this is his karmic debt and his cycle and his pattern. That is his 3D reality. And guess what? As I explained him to you all, um, he reminds me of the girl I was prior to the 2016 Leo and Aquarius eclipses. And it's why I have accepted him as my divine counterpart, even if he chooses to live out um, his reality, um, thinking that, or without realizing what his karmic debt is and the current dynamics he's in, and realizing that there is free will. And no matter how aligned and how much of a gift being in union is, um, I honor someone not being able to take that path. Um, so, with the Vegas trip happening, I had psychic intuition, and I could pick up that she was there or a woman was there with him on the Vegas trip. So I found the answers by Saturday night in his trip there. And by Sunday, whenever he and his wife flew home, um, I told him that if he didn't tell her, I was going to be telling her. And so he wanted to be able to tell her. And so he did that night whenever they got back. And that's when shit hit the fan. But, and that's when she was like, you can choose your new family, um, or us, like basically being the most toxic human being, um, possible, to make it impossible for him to choose his destiny in the end, because that is what I am. I am not a karmic counterpart. I'm not heavy work to um, go through in a relationship. The most work that we or suffering we had to face was him choosing himself and to leave the marriage. And I don't know who chose what, but I know that I left in Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, 2023, because he couldn't be honest about all of that, and choosing to stay with his wife, and his reasonings prior of like staying for inheritance, or um because his wife is threatened to, basically it's her or us. And we ended up also doing a paternity test in April, and by the end of April, or in May, or no, March or April, whatever, uh turns out he wasn't the father. He did come to visit in April, though, after an argument. And um there was a lot of talk and pressure about an abortion. Um, and that was the last meeting we ever had together. And the last FaceTime call we had together was like May 3rd or 4th. And he was 45 minutes long. And I could, I knew that like there was like the end coming, and I just wanted to like avoid it. But he wasn't choosing me, and he was choosing a life in which he's unfulfilled, because he would have never met me if it were for the fact that he was fulfilled and happy. Um, and so, not even like a month after I left him in May, um, oh, and on the FaceTime call, he mentioned that if we hadn't jumped the gun and told his wife, that we could have been living out all of those like dates and everything that we talked about, whether I was pregnant or not. And that and another incident where he showed me a flyer of where he was going on Cinco de Mayo, and I could feel the energy of her being there, even though he said that she was out of town, because they weren't cohabitating on the weekends together, supposedly, and that was a lie, because Instagram, someone posted uh, an advertisement on that page, and it was like 10 different pictures, and he and his wife were sitting at a picnic table outside at one of them. And I blew his phone up with text messages and a lot of verbal abuse. Um, but it was because, like, who wouldn't? Like, you're really not being a great human being. And he, I mean, there were conversations about, I mean, offering to even pay me money to have an abortion because it wasn't going to happen in this lifetime, us being together. And that was before the paternity test. Um, and after the paternity test, obviously it didn't matter. And plus, he started working on things with his wife without question, honestly. And I went off to Europe, and during that time, I mean, they reposted a new profile picture, and I was not going to have any of that. I sent her every screenshot I could, including the inheritance knowledge, and I don't know if she ever saw it, but he was looking for a house by June. And I guess that's when he met his realtor. Um, and now his new life and baby mother, which I'm really happy that he got what he was looking for. Um, but he tried to have me sacrifice mine just so, I mean, I don't even know, because I would have been completely alone in that sense. But fast forward um, to later on in the year, actually, no. Oh, throughout that year, actually, I tried to I didn't really think about him. I was upset with him more than anything. And so, I mean, you guys are probably upset with him right now too. Um, I completely wasn't really like ever like if I thought about him, it was just like the pain and grief because I was working up in Richmond and in DC area during my pregnancy. And um, in DC, I was aligned. I stayed at this place that the address was 1111, and so I really like fucked with it, and a photographer booked this place for me for that weekend. And so I was staying there, and I was aligned with this guy who is a doctor, and he turned out to have the same exact birthday as this divine counterpart, the lawyer. And so yeah, I fell into that, whether it was psychosis or trauma bonding, avoidance, whatever you want to call it, I dived into it. And that went on for on and off uh a year and a few months. That ended in its own crash and burn flame. Um, and lies and deception. And what was so crazy about that ending is, and the way it ended was missing the guy who abandoned me during my pregnancy. It made me think about him. It made me realize that I allowed this connection with a doctor to go on for over a year because of how much I could not, like, there was something that wasn't allowing me to move on, no matter how much I was not even trying to stay connected. There was always this pull back to him. And by the time I ended things, end of October, beginning of November 2024, with this doctor, um, I was introduced to an astrology app called The Pattern. And by December, I plugged in um, the lawyer's natal chart. And that's whenever the way this pattern app broke everything down, the vertex, anti-vertex, the ascendant, descendant, the IC, everything was the perfect opposition. Like the ascendant, descendant mirrored on both charts. The anti-vertex and vertex both mirrored. And not only that, the anti-vertex and ascendant um, mirrored each other. Like my vertex was his ascendant in, or is, and his vertex is my ascendant, and which makes my anti-vertex his descendant, and his anti-vertex my descendant, and his Mars is also crossing my vertex, in Aries, and my Mars, uh, trines with his Leo. They're both Leo placements. And then something about like 10th house is ruled by Mars or Leo, which is career and recognition. And uh, not only that, the IC MC mirrored. So I'm Cancer MC. He is, what is it? Cancer IC, and his MC is Capricorn, and my IC is Capricorn, which means that our public and personal lives, um, they complement each other and are aligned and go hand in hand. And then our Saturn North Node placements both have trines with our Jupiter, Pluto, um, and my North Node, and part of Fortune, which part of Fortune is a placement in which we receive fulfillment in our lives. And so through being together, he, with us being together and in the physical, it would fulfill him and his destiny, and his would fulfill mine and my destiny. Though if he chooses not to be in union with me, um, in which he's chosen a new life with this uh, this new lady, and she's impressive as well, just like his ex-wife was. He has a type, and they're very successful and established, and boss ass bitches. That's what I'll give his choice of women. And I know that he sees that in me as well, but my life in the taboo realms doesn't fit his self-righteous persona, in which his shadows are my shadows and my shadows are his shadows. So he is one and the same. A slut, but not paid for it, is what I like to say. Even though he does have his own gigolo ways about him by being with very established women, even if he has his own career and money, I'll give him that. Um, but that's also part of his karmic debt. And it's also been a motivational piece for me finding my voice as well, because he's basically silenced it by not being there to respond. Yet he hasn't blocked me. He saves every voice note, especially around the time of the sharing of the vertex, which I'm pretty sure his current partner is aware of me, because I was not aware of them having a child at that point in time. I was just divinely guided. I had not dived into anything in his life. I knew that he had a new girlfriend, and he posted a profile picture of them 2 days before my birthday, so I didn't really take it as seriously as it actually is. And so, um, and I'm happy that I didn't at that time period know all of the information that I do, because it took me seeing that he saved every voice note and is silent, and his silence was loud to me. I could feel what he was going through, even though I couldn't put words to what was actually going on. I could just feel this, the anxiety, the stress, and the shift and the uncertainty, and um, what was going on. And I felt like me seeing the charts finally in December 2024 after having the information since February 2023 was also divine timing, because whenever I saw our charts in 2023 February, it only took me a few in-depth like reading, like what they put as in-depth readings on Astro Cafe, I think it is, astrology, or cafe astrology. And I was like, what is astrology even real? Like they're just talking, like this is what they say about me. And I was like, I never really touched on it too much with him. Like there were some, once you got to the oppositions and the trines and conjunctions, there was it was fun to talk about. But whenever I looked at his charts separately, um I I couldn't, I started to not believe in what our compatibility charts were saying, because I was like, how can they say the same thing about both of us? And I mean, he was talking about twin flames as well, but I told him, I was like, at one point, I was like, just say it. What are you actually asking? And he couldn't ask me past that, because I mean, it's scary. I understand. That's why I couldn't talk about it either, despite the journey that I had already been on to even align with his. And so, me not looking whenever before his divorce and before him finding his current partner in life, which I fully believe that it had to happen anyways. I feel like people come together to bring children into this world, and that's something I told him as well, um, during our physical time together and speaking. And before this, what the universe calls the sacred silence, um, because we do have a double fated synastry, which means that no matter what he chooses, there is going to be another fated meeting, whether that is actually ever talking or it's just running into one another. And I'm scared to death of that happening, honestly. Um, but it will happen, um, whether I see it or he sees it. Um, the universe will cause us to cross paths, and it's to see where we are in our life. And depending on how any of that, um, I guess, manifest, it's all on his choice. I have done my work, and this is not about me chasing someone anymore. It's about me reclaiming my soul and what trauma I endured in Richmond in 2020 and 2023. And it's where I am funded to go next to just be a healer instead of being in this realm of um, companionship. It is my aunt um, in Richmond. And with that being said, after my reclamation of my soul happens, which I'm hoping it happens within the next 6 months. So I can just like jet it out to LA, which is like where I want to go back to. But all of the paths are aligning to go to the city in which this connection does live, and it is not my intention to upset or bother his 3D reality. Um, Despite me sharing this, I feel like that's needed to be said because the purpose of even sharing my journey of awakenings is what brought me to this path and continues to deepen my experience with this path. And by calling out what is, it no longer has power to hide in the shadows. Um, by sharing this, others who have the same dynamics and experiences, um, I hope feel more connected and at ease, knowing that what you've experienced is real. Um, and going back to whenever I shared the charts, I looked at MJK and Megan Fox's charts, and theirs are not even locked in the same way. Like every single and my sun sign crosses the vertex, everything. It's like endless. It's everything that crosses one another. It is literally something that is nearly too good to be true, and it takes soul work and ego work. And the saddest part about all of this is I have a feeling that I may just be watching a part of myself um, sell their soul like I once did in my own situation with a man who faked his death and just wanted control, power, and manipulation. And he provided security and a beautiful, beautiful home and a lot of money. And so it was easy to feel like it was enough for me to live with that. But I was so unhappy living there. So unhappy. The amount of times I cried, how unfulfilled I felt. Like I was depersonalized at some point because I wasn't allowed to be myself. And I could never be the other woman to my twin flame, but I could be the woman um, and allow the sexual liberation and exploration to take place in which he has to indulge in by saving my voice notes to listen to because that's the only piece of me he has left to experience in his illusion of a 3D life, in which keeps him safe yet restrains him from any growth, in which it's not my job to show him. That's his karmic debt if he wishes to play that out instead of naming the pattern. But that's my gift too. I get to name the pattern for people. And I honestly may not even be on his radar, but he does save those notes. And there's no one in my past who has ever done that, nor have I ever had synastry with our charts the way they are. In fact, it's probably a 1% chance of people having our type of synastry. Um, our synastry has the ability to shape relationship paradigms. Um, it has the ability to heal so many people. And I can do that on my own. And that's what I'm doing here now by sharing this story is and by being here alone because a part of me felt like there needed to be a co-host, and I would have loved for him because the way we talked, um, the way he got information out of me, the questions, his side of his experience, all of it, um, I will share in my own way and on my own. And sometimes things don't have to happen in the physical. Um, he inspired me enough to pick up a mic. And that's because he used to be that person for 3 months who would listen and it would motivate me in so many ways to embrace Tantra again because I even went to a Tantra workshop out in or a festival I participated in as a vendor down in Homestead, Florida. It's called A S.L.U.T. And I mean, if it weren't for the fact of like really missing the friendship aspect of being able to share everything that has happened in this journey um, with him, I don't, I know that it would have happened at some point, but I'm happy that, I mean, it's all led here. It's all led me here, sharing my story publicly instead of vying for a counterpart that chooses to stay blind to the experience that we had. Um, and I know that I don't know if it was him or if it was his current partner that I'm pretty sure she knows about me because I received some weird text February 13th, February 14th, and February 15th, and February 16th of 2025. And it was a few weeks after my last voice messages to him that he saved um, uh, um, were received. And it was from realtor.com, Ava from realtor.com, asking me how I'm doing. And it's mentioned like sending over homes to one of my emails, and that email happens to be attached to my Venmo, which is something that he's sent me money through before for the paternity test. Uh, and I'm gonna assume that's how she got my information. I honestly don't know how. Um, I just think it's very odd for I hadn't been looking at homes at all, first off. And then just the daily text for like 3 days in a row, or 4 days, technically 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th, 4 days. And the fact that the 15th and 16th were Saturday and Sunday, there's no way, no way. And I stopped the text by answering, I haven't been looking at homes recently. And plus, they said that they sent an email. There was no email. It was just a way to get me to respond as if I was like what I was doing. And I didn't realize what was going on at the time, but fast forward, this is February 2025. I move up here May 2025, um, to DC, not Richmond. And that's whenever I find out about him having a baby and all of that stuff. And I stopped looking after that. To be honest, you guys have no idea how much I've tried to sever the connection, and I'm pretty close. I think the soul reclamation is the next step, and of course, sharing the experience. Oh, fuck. And of course, sharing the experience with the world instead of having it as a dark secret. Um, but here I am now. Those two um, stories, it may not be many, even though I've had over 1,000 different experiences between my clients and um, non-clients. This ever unfolding twin flame journey that I am on has led me here to this podcast. I always knew that I was supposed to write a book or share my story, and I thought I was supposed to be writing, but to have such a yearning, constant yearning for just friendship and to communicate again with my twin flame and to share everything. Um, I mean, there was a point in December where I asked him to visit me telepathically because we have a very telepathic relationship. It was very, very strong, and I was able to pull him in to communicate and even see me in the physical during those 3 months in 2023. And I hadn't tried to even tap into that until December 2025. And I was sitting at one of my favorite bars drinking an espresso martini. And I thought to myself and to him, it was like, if you're able to like receive this message, I don't want to bother you or be a hindrance in your new life. Um, but a dream for closure would be perfect right now. And it took a week, but the dream I had was us laying side by side, facing each other. And he had this golden aura and light around him, and he was smiling and listening, just like old times. And it wasn't even about the sexual chemistry, nothing of that nature. It was the talking and sharing everything and sharing that my natal chart transits show that I'm going to meet my destined partner. So I'm happy for him and I'm letting him go. And I was even talking, like, I woke up sleep talking to him, and it was the most blissful, uh, like, happy feeling ever. Waking up and just going from literally like laying in bed with him, sitting up and waking up and talking and ending the conversation in 3D reality. It was more than any dream experience I could have actually asked for. he more than showed up. It was like this safe, sacred space where we were able to go and dream state, or I was able to go to meet him and his higher self. And it was all of the confirmation I needed about who he was, but also the closure. And with that, waking up and fluidly talking to him, I started working on podcast ideas. And a month after that dream is when I published my first episode. And a few weeks after that dream, I had a really great sexual experience with this guy who happened to be my Lyft ride driver. And it ended within like 10, 11 days, but it was an amazing reminder that I'm ready for partnership and divine partnership and someone who is able to meet me where I need them to meet me for soul evolution and soul work and transformation, because this is my divine purpose. And even if you're destined to have a counterpart join you, because right now this seat is reserved, it's a void seat, and who knows if it will be filled by that co host, but it will take a very special frequency if it ever is. And with the way the frequency has aligned with my twin flame, it's gonna be really hard. But it would be hard for my twin flame too, because it's not like I would just welcome him in the same day with open arms. There is some stuff that, even to be friends, like, I'm not a secret to be hidden. I am a voice and a presence and a face that is to be recognized and acknowledged and respected. And I am not in competition with his current choices. I am in my own league. And if anything, I am a source of light and healing for women and those who wish to embrace sovereignty and to learn what that actually is and can be. And as a sovereign woman, not even my twin flame has the excuse to diminish me in a way and abandon me in a way that no woman should feel like they're nothing. And just because I was not established then doesn't mean I won't ever be established. And that is the story I share. And that is the power behind my voice and the power behind my healing and my tantric practice and me diving into sharing the wisdom that only I could share because of my experience, the perspective in which I can share, because plenty of people can talk about plenty of things, but there's not enough evidence out there to point people in the right direction sometimes. Not everyone knows where to look, how to look, or even can handle looking, even if they knew how to. Um, and like I mentioned before, I'm not a karmic partner. I am a divine feminine and I reclaim my power in this entire situation. And for him to even at one point, I mean, point out the twin flame connection and point out that me being in his life made him a better father, even despite him not fully respecting that as he, I mean, self-centeredly wanted me to stay in his life so that he was a better father while he worked things out with his crumbling and failing marriage, in which this woman is already married to someone else. I doubt that she was faithful the entire time, and she probably worked on his morals and his commitment and loyalty and inability to ruin reputations in such a manner that she let him suffer. And in exchange, he didn't want to do any more harm than he already did, but she sure the fuck didn't care if she hurt him the way he hurt her. And like I said, I doubt that she was even fully faithful. So the fact that infidelity was the issue, and it wasn't actually, she said that at one point, it's not that you cheated, it's the fact that you're emotionally invested. And uh, I mean, telling him to choose between children, but and it's funny that she did that towards me, um, because now he does have a new family, a new life, and all of that. Um, and I get to be the observer and have a powerful story to tell and share with everyone. Meanwhile, he gets to live out his karmic debts and consequences for his actions and the way he treated me. Because, like I keep saying, I am a gift to be experienced, and not all twin flames get to experience the union, that the gift of being in union and the ease and love and support, the path of least resistance that it ends up being. Not everyone does. And I mean, I'm not here to steal anyone's man. I already walked away from a dynamic like that once, and I told him that I was not going to be a rebound. I was not going to ruin his marriage or tell him to leave. It's all about choice. And if someone doesn't choose, I'll walk away each time. And thank you for realigning me with my path, despite the pain that the abandonment from a part of myself felt like. And now I get to experience myself sovereign, and I get to witness almost like a surgical removal of literally a part of my soul. And maybe that's sometimes what these things are about. Maybe twin flame unions or twin flames. Not all twin flames make it back together in the afterlife, and I surely hope he doesn't truly sell his soul in the long run. Or this isn't a soul selling situation, but I can sleep well knowing that I'm whole in my soul experience. Even if, I mean, I pick up on a lot of his emotions, which sucks, but even with that, this is my way of channeling and not holding on to whatever pain he's feeling, because I'm done with all of that. And the Uber sexual experience back in January, if anything, that taught me that as long as you find someone respectful, because it did not work out due to disrespect as well, there there are more connections out there. Not all of them are perfectly mathematically designed astrology like in astrology like our chart happens to be, which is the sucky part, but not really, because I mean, I am fulfilled within myself. This is my counterpart, you guys, this podcast. This is my line of communication to the divine and the universe and all of the students and seekers of transforming their lives. And with that, I would like to ask you guys if you wish to leave a comment. Um, have you ever been so sexually awakened and triggered and shaken awake through orgasmic energy where or a sexual experience which was so mind-blowing that left you seeking answers for what the fuck just happened? Because if so, stay tuned for more because this is not the end. um, Definitely not the end of that. The next episode I'll share the dark side of Tantra and pitfalls and such. But enjoy, follow, like, subscribe, share with everyone. um, Thank you for being here as I find my voice and reclaim my story and share my my journey of wholeness and self-love and fucking crazy life experiences. um, Again, I can only appreciate those who tune in. Have a blessed one. Until next time.